Gentlemen, so you've watched my videos. You went out and got yourself some dress hats. But now you have to ask that great etiquette question. When is it appropriate for me to wear this? And when is it appropriate for me to take it off? And when I do have to take it off, what exactly do I do with the damn thing? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some hat etiquette here on Big Pretty Man. Hi, and welcome back to Big Pretty Man, the channel for the extra large man who likes to live his life large and in charge. I'm your host, Timothy Big Pretty Crowe. I'm a wardrobe and lifestyle consultant for the extra large man. Okay guys, I thought as a follow-up to my hat series, which a lot of people seem to like, I thought we'd talk a little bit about hat etiquette. And it's something that really does need to be discussed, especially in this day and time. If you go back 50 years, most men would have already known dress hat etiquette. Why? Because 50 years ago, most men wore hats. You know, if you go back to the 1940s, 1950s, or even before, a man just did not leave the house without a hat on. It was just seen as improper. However, today, you know, most people don't wear dress hats, and this has been true since about the 1970s. In the 1970s, the big hair came in. Also, economy cars, which are much smaller. It's kind of hard to get in and out of these cars wearing a hat. And the big hairdo, especially with men. I mean, it's hard to wear a fedora over a feather. It can be done, but when you got a feather, you want to show it off. So, you know, at that point, you know, hats started falling by the wayside, and hat etiquette, of course, started being forgotten. Now, in today's society, you know, this needs to be reintroduced, and it becomes a bit of a question: when do you leave your hat on? When do you take your hat off? And basically, I can narrow it down to two simple situations. One would be in public place. Another one be in private place. You can wear your hat in any public place. When I say a public place, this is not anyone's personal space, someone's personal business, something like that. You know, you are in public. That would apply to things like walking around outside, of course, in a park. But if you're going inside a business building, you know, a mall, a shop, you know, a grocery store, you really don't have to remove your hat there. You're not in anyone's personal space. You're not also in some sort of sacred space. So therefore, you know, you're in public, you can wear your hat. However, if you personal space, or you could even call it sacred space, is different. There you need to show respect. So you need to remove your hat. This would include going into someone's home, of course. This would also include going into someone's office. That is their personal space. For instance, you go into the public building where the office is, you can leave your hat on. But when you walk into the person's office, you should remove your hat. You are now in their personal space. Now when it comes to public spaces that can turn somewhat private or more intimate, you have to adjust the rules. Now, I think a prime suspect for that, a prime candidate for that would be restaurants. You know, a restaurant is a public place, but once inside, it becomes much more personal and intimate. You're eating with people, you're eating around people. So therefore, the basic rule is kind of common sense. When you can wear the hat into the restaurant, but if you wish, you know, but when you sit down to eat, you need to remove your hat. Yeah, and you can pick it back up when you go out. Now, I said personal space or private, or you know, personal space or sacred space. Now, when I say sacred space, I'm of course referring to not only someone's home, which I would see as a sacred space, but also religious institutions. You know, synagogues. Churches, mosques, places like that. Now, there you have different hat or head covering etiquette. And you got to be a little educated on this. For instance, in Christian churches and in Christian dogma, in fact, it is customary for a man to remove his hat, but it is said that a woman should cover her hair or cover her head. Now, if you go to a synagogue, a man should cover his head and a woman should not. And in a mosque, women should have to cover their hair, but men, it's hat optional. You can wear a hat or you can't. Most do, but you don't have to take it off. You don't have to remove it. So kind of educate yourself into where you're going so you can show the proper respect. That's what a gentleman does. Now, all of that is, you can find other people have talked about this, on different channels, not just me. However, one thing they don't talk about is exactly what to do with your hat when you're out and about. When you do have to take it off in these places, what do you do with it? And the thing is, the reason we have to ask this question is because, once again, if you'd have went back 50 years, most men wore hats. Most men removed their hats when they came indoors or come into somebody's personal space. So therefore, there was places that accommodated a hat off of a head. If you walked into a restaurant, they had hat racks. Or they took your hat at a coat check. If you walked into someone's home, they had a hat rack. We usually, on that top rail on top of where you hung your coat. When you went into a business, same thing. The secretary or the attendant or even the person would ask to take your hat. You pull off your jacket, or if it was warm, you'd pull off your hat and they would take your hat and they would return it to you when you get done. Watch some of the old movies from the 1940s through the 60s, and you'll see that. You'll see them automatically take their hat. Somebody walks in, they hand them the hat. When they walk out, first thing they get their hat. We don't really have that much anymore. There are a few restaurants that have a coat and hat check, and they'll take your hat if you offer it. But most people don't have a hat rack in their house when you come in. They're not used to taking your hat. Most businesses don't have someone automatically be like, can I take your hat or your coat? No, they may even have a place to hang your coat, but nothing really to accommodate your hat, because culture has changed. But nowadays there are a lot more men. Of course, as I said, hats have had a bit of a renaissance in the last 10 years. So there are a lot of men that are wearing hats now. So it comes to the question, what do you do with it? And I've been in that situation where I walked into a place wearing a hat, and I'd have to take, and I knew I had to take it off, and I take it off, but I'm like, okay, there's no hat rack, there's no place for me to put this hat. What am I going to do with it? And I end up having to carry it around with me. Makes it a little awkward. Well, I've got a few answers for that. Number one, when you do go into any place, you can ask them. They may not know this etiquette, but you can say to them, do you have a place that I can put my hat and my coat, if you're wearing a coat? But if they do have anything, they try to take your coat, automatically say, can you also take my hat? Or just hand them the hat. That's one way of doing it. Another way, if you're really in a situation where you don't know what to do with your hat, and I'll give you a good example. Say you go to a job interview, you've worn your hat. You come in, when you want to look sharp, you come in looking sharp. You remove the hat and they take you into the person's office. But you look around and there's nowhere to hang your hat. Nor does the interviewer offer you a place to hang your hat. Why? Because he's not used to this. So what do? A couple things that you probably shouldn't do. One is to just hold it in your hand and sit there with it in your hand. And that looks a little awkward. Second thing is, if you sit down and there is another seat beside of you, I would not recommend putting your hat there. Why? Because a lot of times, in an interview, or it may happen, may not, they'll have, you're interviewing this person, hey, I would like so-and-so from finance to speak with you, or the assistant manager to speak with you. So suddenly they come in, and now you've got to now you've got to move your hat. Now it's awkward again. Therefore, in that circumstance, what I usually recommend is that you place the hat in your lap. Just cross your legs and sit it in your lap. And you'll find it looks much more comfortable. It looks much more natural. Kind of set it on, hanging on the edge of your knee. I think it looks very gentlemanly. It looks very manly. It looks like you have a little bit of suave, a little bit of suaveness to you. That you have a little, you're a little more smooth, and it looks like you look comfortable in what you're doing. So, and I think that's the best alternative. Then you get up, you're always have your hat in your left hand, not your right. Why? Shake hands with your right hand. You don't want to be, oh, hang a minute, and switching the hand, So whenever you pull off your hat, pull it off with your left hand. You put it, and that way it leaves your right hand open so that you can shake hands, and you're holding your hat. And that, and then as you go out the door, pop that hat on, get it, get the right stank on it. So, that's one thing. Now, same thing when you enter someone's house. I would, when you have the hat, put the hat in your left hand and sit it on your knee. At some point, they may be like, "Can we take your hat?" You can be like, "Well, if you don't mind, and then they'll take your hat. It's kind of reintroducing. It's still kind of buried in our etiquette somewhere. And if they see some of the hat, they will finally respond. So, but it's the best way to handle, that type of situation with your hat. Now, as another part of hat etiquette I would like to talk about is how to use the hat in your everyday mannerism, and to show that you are a gentleman. And I think that this is very important. Now, some people may find this as a bit old-fashioned. Some people may find this a bit dated, not with the times. But let me tell you, I have actually found it just to be the opposite, because whenever you are being a gentleman and you are showing, using proper etiquette, you are showing respect for the people around you, or the person you're speaking with or interacting with. And when you really show respect and courtesy to other people, that is always appreciated. People will react positively when you do this. I don't care if it's the youngest hipster, or an 80-year-old lady, or a woman in her 40s, or if you approach them and you use old-fashioned courtesy, just good manners, they're going to react. People react to shown respect, whether male or female. And therefore, I'd like to bring back one thing, and I've been using it, and I've actually gotten great results, and that is the very old-fashioned tradition of the hat tip. We don't see it much anymore. It used to be a very common part of our culture. You walk down the street, especially if you passed a lady, you would tip your hat. You could either do the full tip, "Ma'am," or "Good afternoon, ma'am." Just that simple gesture, "Ma'am," or "Sir," either one, "Sir." I'm telling you, you'll get a smile on the face every time. Rarely does anybody look at you like, "What are you doing?" You will sometimes, but most time it's going to be this big, "Hi." A big smile. I've tried it on people as young as 20, 22, 23, as well as, in all ages. I always get the smile. Rarely do I get the, "What is this?" If you don't believe me, try it. Another thing that I would like to suggest, and this is something that we've really got it out of the practice of. You watch old movies, you will see it. But that is when you walk up to speak to somebody, especially someone who is older than you, someone who is your senior or holds a higher position than you do, or if it is a lady that you're speaking to. When you actually walk up in close proximity to talk, remember we could walk up in close proximity before COVID? It'll come back. But even if you're 6 feet away, if you're still within that zone, when you walk up to speak to them and you want to speak to show your respect, remove your hat and hold it like this. How are you, ma'am? Can I help you, ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, sir. I'm telling you, just this one little action, this one little posture, you will not believe the results that you'll get from it. You want to charm someone quick, you want to get on someone's good side, show them that type of respect and see if they do not respond. Just that simple thing. So the hat nod, and taking the hat off when you're speaking to someone very seriously, or or someone you want to show special respect. And then always replace your hat before you leave. Try it. I'm telling you. Once again, it's these little things. Old-fashioned etiquette was etiquette for hundreds of years for a reason. It works. And guess what? It's universal. Why? Because respect for another human being is universal. So, you don't believe me? Try it. And then text me down below, message me down below and tell me how it went. I'd love to hear your experiences. Well, that's about all I've got to say. Rather short video here on hat etiquette and manners. Once again, if you guys are enjoying my content, be sure to subscribe by hitting this little King Henry head with my pretty face. Also, you can drop me a message. Tell me your experiences with tipping your hat, or wearing the certain tricks you may have found about wearing hats indoors, or what to do with your hat. I'd love to hear it. I always love to hear from anybody, and my subscribers. So, you can also reach me on you can email me, text me, you can email me, hit me for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I'd love to hear from you. Therefore, get out there, tip that hat, and until I see you next time, stay pretty.